Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is A Date with Miss Hannah. So today we are starting off with why does poverty matter? So in my previous video we've discussed the definition of poverty and the dimensions of poverty. So here we shall start off with why poverty matters. If you haven't watched my previous video, you can watch it before you come to this. So why does poverty matter? Number one, we have the intrinsic significance, that is poverty is bad in itself. Then number two, functional reasons. Poverty has implications for development, for example, poverty traps. Number three, for many, removal of poverty is one of the main goals of economic development. For example, in the UN, the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal number one is remove poverty. Then we have such and end of poverty 2005. So when you look at this, somebody would be like, but these look like disadvantages, and yet they're saying, why does poverty matter? So would expect to see advantages of poverty. Maybe these advantages in themselves, for example, the intrinsic significance is poverty is bad in itself. So when somebody is poor, they are living at low standards of living. They're not living a really good life. So being that poverty is bad, people would want to go away from it. So that is how the advantage comes about. And then we have functional reasons. Poverty has implications for development. For example, poverty traps. So our country or society will want to move away from poverty because it is going to implicate in their development. And then we have for removal, for many, removal of poverty is one of the main goals of economic development. So poverty is going to drive a company towards a certain focus, towards a certain goal. So countries are going to set a goal of removing poverty just because it is bad in itself. So next is the working concepts of poverty. Number one, these are just different key definitions. Under poverty, we have poverty line as number one. Poverty line is a critical threshold of income or consumption or cutoff point below which a person is declared poor. So you can choose whichever you can use. You can just say poverty line is the cutoff point below which a person is declared poor. I prefer that because it is easier to recall. Poverty line is the cutoff line below which a person is declared poor. Below which a person is declared poor. Number two, it represents the minimum level of acceptable economic participation. It represents the minimum level of acceptable economic participation at a given point of life. So at that point, at the poverty line, that is where one is accepted to economically participate, or one is considered to actually be not poor. When you reach the poverty line, when you're just along the poverty line and above, then you're okay, but below the poverty line you're considered to be poor. According to World Bank, the international poverty line in developing countries is $1.9 a day. According to World Bank, the international poverty line in developing countries is around $1.9 a day, which would be around 6,840 shillings approximately. Okay, yes, approximately 6,000 shillings if we remove the other small shillings. But remember, the currency for the dollar keeps shifting, so but it is approximately 6,000 shillings. The poverty line keeps changing from time to time. Number two, so that means when you go back to the poverty line, that means if you cannot actually make 6,000 shillings a day, you're below the poverty line. And whoever can make 6,000 shillings a day and above are okay, and they're not considered to be poor. Then number two, transitory versus chronic poverty. Transitory or transient or temporary poverty. So those are all different terms to mean the same thing. Transitory, transient, or temporary poverty results from bad economic shocks such as drought, inflation, lower producer prices, leading to a short-term fall below the poverty line. So this one results from bad economic shocks. Then chronic poverty, on the other hand, is a recurring condition or state of being where a person is deprived of basic needs of life, such as food, shelter, clothing, among others. So just like we've heard of chronic diseases before, something that is continuous, something that is already there. So it is a recurring condition, continuous. So chronic poverty is a recurring condition or a recurring state of being, where a person is deprived of basic needs of life. So you continuously don't have or continuously lack the resources to avail you with the basic needs of life. But with transitory, it just happens once in a while, and they're telling us it happens as a result of bad economic shocks. So it's just a once in a while thing. For example, when you look at they're saying us such as drought, inflation, producer lower producer prices. For example, right now we are having inflation in the country. Prices are going up, fuel prices, soap prices, and almost everything is just shooting high. So when you're having inflation in a state, it might actually make people fall below the poverty line. But this is just a short term fall, not something that is going to stay that way forever, not something that is going to keep recurring. So that is transitory, transient, or temporary poverty. So, in other words, chronic poverty can also be defined as or understood as permanent poverty. And then number 3, we have absolute versus relative poverty. Absolute poverty is where a household or society is surviving at the margin. It is characterized by malnutrition, illiteracy, disease, and general sense of malaise or hopelessness. Relative poverty, on the other hand, is comparative. It compares poverty between individuals, societies, nations, or regions. It is a standard which is measured in terms of the society in which an individual lives and which therefore differs between countries and over time. So, with absolute poverty, a country or a household or a person is surviving just at the margin. That means they're definitely below the poverty line and they are not really living well. They are just surviving at the margin. Or as we can say in layman's language, surviving, but they're holding the rope at the end. How do they say that? I've forgotten how they're supposed to be said, but you're holding just the end of the rope, and that is why you're hanging just by the end of the rope. Yeah. So they are surviving at the margin. And they're telling us it is characterized by malnutrition. That means they're not feeding well, illiteracy, no education, diseases, and general sense of malaise or hopelessness. So they even don't have hope that they're going to survive the next day. They just go to bed and find themselves awake the following day, and they're not sure whether they'll find food for the following day. They're not sure whether they'll find, anything to drink the next day. They just wake up and get into the day just like that. And then with relative poverty, just like the name it says states, it is your relative. So it is going to relative, you're going to be comparing. So that means poverty can differ from country to country. Somebody is living in the States and another person is living in Uganda, and probably in the States the poorest person earns maybe 10,000 a day, and then in Uganda the poorest person earns 2,000 shillings a day. So we cannot compare these two people and say they are both poor. Maybe the poverty line in the States is 20,000 shillings and the poverty line in Uganda is 6,000 shillings. So we cannot really compare these two people because there is a difference. So we cannot say, just like Hannah is poor in Uganda, Gloria is also poor in Uganda, because they are both below the poverty line. The other person is actually being able to earn 20,000 a day, and this person cannot even earn 6,000 a day. So there is a difference. So with relative poverty, you just compare poverty between individuals, societies, nations, or regions. Then number 4, we have the poverty trap. Poverty trap is a state where poverty tends to persist due to self-reinforcing mechanisms such as undernourishment, lack of access to insurance, population growth, or degraded environment and economic growth. So just like the name states, poverty trap, you're trapped in poverty. That a state of poverty tends to persist due to self-reinforcing mechanisms such as undernourishment, lack of access to insurance, population growth, a degraded environment, and economic growth. Number 5, multidimensional deprivation or severe poverty. This is deprivation. Oh my god. This is deprivation or the lack of resources to certain goods and services considered necessary for society, whether basic needs or not. So with severe poverty, this is where you cannot actually access things that are considered necessary for society. They may be basic needs, they may not be basic needs, but as long as society considers it to be something that you are supposed to have. For example, in this generation we are in, everybody is expected to at least have a phone. Whether a smartphone or not, one is expected to have a phone on them. So as long as, So if you do not have a phone with you and you're maybe, let us leave alone the children, let us leave alone the teenagers, but maybe you're of working class already and you've gone into the world, you've started working and everything, but you don't have a phone. So it is something that society considers as a necessity. So if you don't have it, you're considered to be under severe poverty. We have clothes. Somebody is expected to have at least a pair of clothing to put on your body. So if you don't have such, you're definitely under severe poverty. You're supposed to at least have a pair of shoes in your feet. However much you may feel like I still walk without a pair of shoes, it is a necessity according to society. So if you lack access to certain goods and services considered necessary for society, then you're considered to fall under severe poverty. So in my next video, we're going to come back with theories of poverty. Stay tuned, subscribe for more, and don't forget to like and comment whether you like this video or not and where I can actually improve. Thank you.